Good morning, everyone. My name is Specright. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Specright. My role is to really drive the platform engineering and product evolution. But above all, it's about ensuring that Specright's offerings meet the needs of customers and help them achieve their goals after all. I'm joined here today with Dan Harrison. Dan is a master architect at Salesforce. He's also an expert in the blockchain domain, which is the focus of our discussion today. Here's a brief overview of what we'll cover. We'll start with a quick intro of what blockchain is and how it applies to supply chain. We will then talk about how the Specright network, powered by blockchain, is enabling supply chain collaboration, visibility, and advanced traceability. Most importantly, we'll show a live demo of the Specright network. Dan, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Eamon, for inviting me to join your webinar today. I work on the Salesforce Emerging Technologies team responsible for blockchain. I've been working on distributed ledgers for several years, and I even filed a few patents in this space. But it's exciting to see businesses like Specright take advantage of this rapidly changing technology, which is why, as a Salesforce architect, I have to point out that Specright is currently one of our top design partners in a closed pilot of the Salesforce solution using blockchain technology. But don't worry, this isn't a technology deep dive on blockchain. But for those of you who are wondering why blockchain is so important, blockchain really just means the record can never be modified. Think of it like stacking Lego bricks. Each time you add more information, it needs to be built on the block below it. So you can never go back and change a block without tearing it all down. This is part of the verifiable trust built on the history of transactions that's visible across many companies that makes blockchain so important. If one of the blocks has to change, it is instantly obvious to everyone else that a change has been made in the environment. And the most famous blockchain drives Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. But I believe it's much like the internet or electricity. We have not yet begun to appreciate how secure ledger will be used across many different companies. Just like the light bulb was electricity's first real obvious use case. Cryptocurrencies have thrust the blockchain into the mainstream. Today, electricity is used in so many different ways. It's inherent in almost everything related to our modern life. We don't give it much thought until the power is lost. Blockchain will also be used in many different ways to drive trust and transparent interactions between all the businesses we rely on. And I know a lot of excitement is around the possibilities across so many different industries. And this is where Salesforce follows the industries and our customers' needs. We are seeing across many companies that collaboration is needed now more than ever. Whether it be to improve supply chain, track product specifications, or manage credentials for onboarding employees, like in the White House initiative. All of these are driving investment, and Salesforce is providing the declarative tools for our Salesforce admins to incorporate blockchain easily and to ensure that every company can take advantage of the distributed ledger. Specifically, in supply chain, there have been many projects focused on tracking products. So not only are we increasing safety for recalls, but increasing customer confidence as the ability for audits of various accreditations like environmental, sustainable farming, food, recycled content for plastics can all be verified, or maybe just meeting various government safety regulations. Stores and consumers are looking for transparency, but to get a truly full picture can be a real challenge. That is where Specright comes in.
That's right, Dan. A lot goes into the products that we all use. It takes hundreds and thousands of data points and various suppliers and manufacturers to bring products to market, and it doesn't stop there. Products go out into the world and start generating history. they change, or have quality issues. All of this data is part of its story and digital identity. And the inability to keep track of this data and lack of transparency is truly bad for your business. That's why we created Specright, the first purpose-built platform for specification management. When companies digitize their specifications, they create a digital thread through their supply chain. Our goal is to make it easy for companies to digitize, map, and operationalize data across their supply chain. Most companies don't have all the data they need in one place. So the first step is to digitizing their supply chain data. Then we link those specs across the supply chain. This allows us to operationalize the data by layering on analytics, workloads, and approvals. Today, I'll cover how we're taking another step towards this journey by introducing Specright Network powered by blockchain. Specright Network takes supply chain management to the next level. Our customers weren't asking for blockchain, but they were asking for supply chain transparency and new and better ways to collaborate with one another. In fact, many were already doing business together on Specright. We realized that by enabling blockchain as part of our specification management platform, we could take collaboration to the next level. The Specright Network is easy to use, so users can quickly publish, change, and update specifications across companies and parties in the supply chain. We will show you this in the live demo as well. Specright Network enables key supply chain outcomes: traceability, collaboration, and authentication, and many others. Changes are tracked on the spec level, and all users have access to the same specification, including its history of changes. Real-time collaboration becomes the default communication, since all information is in one place. Users can review, edit, and publish specifications instantly. When we say specifications are the critical DNA of supply chain, we truly understand that they include sensitive information. With the Specright Network, companies can choose what exact information to share and who precisely it's shared with. With all such information digitalized and immutable on the network, audits, recall investigations, and root cause analysis efforts become massively simplified and extremely accurate. Now let's get through a quick demo to see how that works using the Specright platform itself.
For the sake of the demo, let's consider 3 partners or customers on the Specright platform right now. Super Packaging, which supplies plastic bags to Old Carrot Produce, as well as Global Farms Produce for their vegetable products. So basically, Super Packaging supplies them with the plastic bags that they need to package the vegetable in and sell as part of the final product. We'll go through a couple of scenarios in this demo. The first one is where Super Packaging is working on producing a new plastic bag, and they want to get the feedback on the specs format from the rest of the partners on the network. And then after it's been consumed, the second scenario is going to be, okay, now that everybody is using it and they went live with those partners, if Super Packaging is doing a change to that specification, how would they propagate and let others review and tell them about those changes in advance so that they're prepared for it as well? So as you can see here, on the left side, you can have the Super Packaging has a typical plastic bag spec for the product dimensions, the zipper details, the graphics, the material structure. So putting it actually on the network is as simple as you go and change the status from internal draft that you've been working on into review. What this does, once you put in review, you mark it as a current status. And what this does, it actually puts that copy on the network for others to actually be accessible for them, be able to look at those new published plastic bag spec. Let me refresh once more. Sometimes it takes time. It's refreshed. Here you can see the fresh produced bag. It's now in review. And if I go and on the other side for the global produce farms, refresh my Specright network, I should see as well that Super Packaging have actually put a new fresh bag review in review status, and I can review it. As you can see here, it gets all the details. As you can see, its comparison has nothing to compare against because you haven't used it yet. It's a new one. but you can still traverse all the details and be able to look at all the specifics of it. So let's say I went, okay, and say, okay, looks like good, but I want to change the color from white to clear, for example. Let's change it to clear. Can you please change color to clear? And once I'm done, I'm going to please publish it. I'm okay with that. Let's mark the comment. And the comment now becomes immutable actually on the blockchain network itself. Similar thing for archive produce, and you can see as well, you get notifications when a new spec is being put. Let me refresh the Specright network. All kind of produce now can see it as well, and you want to give the feedback. I'll leave the comments as well for super packaging to see the feedback on the new plastic bag specification. Say great, looks good, as well with the change of the color. So we're okay with changing it because we read the comments. And that's actually configurable, right? You can see those comments or not. It depends on the configuration of your privacy as well, right? Let me go on the super packaging side now. I'm able to go and see the comments that's left by the rest of the partners and the feedback on my product spec that I just put for review. Great. Thanks. We'll change the color and then publish. Let me put the comment as well because everybody can see it. Here's it. I'll go back to my specification. I'm gonna go and actually do the change now from white to clear. Let me save it. And now publish it back to the network as it's published now. As you can see, if you go back to the Specright network now, I should be able to see it now. It's published. It used to be a review. Now it's published. And I can check as well the status of who accepted it and who went live as well. The difference is here that we're looking at is some partners will be able to accept it now, but they don't want to go live yet. Think about scenarios where they have already using an older plastic bags and they want to deplete them first before they actually go live with the newer spec. So for that purposes, as a super packaging and owner of the spec, they can track actually who accepted it and who actually is using it and went live with it. Let's say for global produce farms, I should see it now as published, and I get to choose whether I want to go, here's it published, whether I want to go accept it only or accept and go live. In that case, let's accept only. As you can see now, after accept only and refreshed, it's accepted, but I still have the option to go live afterwards. On all carded produce, I'll do the other way around. I'll actually think about, okay, I've actually depleted already my plastic bags. I'm going to just accept it and go live straight ahead from one step. Let's do that. So accept and go live. What this does, it actually, because I went live, it creates a local copy of it into my repository of specs, because now that's live, I'm making use of it. As you can see here with my own specs, look at the fresh produce bag. You can see here with the newer one with the changing clear, that's happened. On the super packaging side, I'm now be able to track the status as well, as we've seen before. But now the status is, well, there's a couple of accepted and one only went live, and you can tell which one did and which one did not. Let's make a change here. Let's accept it and go live now. Global Farms, I have time to it now. I depleted my stuff. I want to accept it and go live. Similar thing now. A local copy of it is being created into my local repository of specifications. Yep, here's it. Now let's go for the other scenario. Let's say super packaging is doing now a change to the plastic bag specification, but that plastic bag now it's not a new one. It's already been consumed and went live by the partners, as you can see from the previous scenario. Let's see how we're going to go through a change of control now and specification across the network. So I'm going to go back to my specifications, go back to my fresh produce bag, mark it back to first internal draft, so I'm doing changes. And let's say I'm going to change the I mark. Let's say I change anything for the demo. Let's save it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back once more in the network and review status. On global produce forms, I can refresh now the spec network. You'll find that the spec once now it's in review. As you can see now, the system automatically detected on the network that that's actually something that I've went live before with. So it tracked all the previous commands on that spec, as well as it actually detected that I have a local copy of it. And it's highlighting here, as you can see, only the change that I have, right? The change for the demo in red here, so that it's easier to see what changes what at what time and how. I'm going to go back comments, looks good, command back. Let me do the same thing on the all character produce, refresh the network. Here's it now, it's back in review. Let me put a review and leave a comment here as well. Still, you can highlight the changes, as you can see, detecting the local copy. All good, all is good. With a comment. Now when I go back into super packaging, check the Specright network, refresh it. I should be able to see the new comments that my rest of the partners have put. Okay, looks like they're all good with it. Let me do the change and publish it. Change is already done, sorry, just publish straight ahead. What this happens is it puts the new spec with the change for the I mark into the network once more. If I refresh on all character produce the Specright network, I should be able to see it published. As you can see, I'm going to accept and go live for both straight ahead. You can still highlight the differences. Let me accept and go live. What that happens is, because I have a local copy, it didn't create a new one, but it updated the one because I wanted to go live straight ahead. As you can see here, I wanted the old one, it updated the I mark, so the change for demo value. Similar thing, let's do the same thing with the global produce forms. Refresh the Specright network. Let's accept and go live. And I should be able to see as well that my specification, fresh produce back, has been updated with the new I mark. Here's it, perfect. Another scenario that's very important for the blockchain network in general is the ability for everyone across the network to view the history and what changed went what. It is the traceability power that the Specright blockchain provides for all partners on the network. So, and the idea here is super packaging, even the owner of the spec can see the changes and can track it, but also as those who actually consumed it and is making use of. Think about all the scenarios about recalls, product recalls, or something that's happened wrong. How can I pinpoint what changes by when and who did it? So all of that is tracked immutably on the network. As you can see here in the super packaging, I can see all the history, specifically all the different changes. It was in review first, and then got published after I changed the color to clear, and then it's public review, changed the I mark. But also global produce forms can see the same thing as well, right? So if you see the history, they should be all seeing the same data at the same time. And that's the power of traceability and the advantage that a blockchain brings to you with the Specright platform. As you can see here, you can also see all the details. So this was a very quick demo of a couple of scenarios and the ability to trace as well those changes across the network in a more comprehensive and transparent way across the Specright network.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Simon. We have a lot of questions rolling in. I want to encourage attendees, please submit your questions using the question box. We won't be able to get to all of them today, but I promise that we will follow up with you in email. We're also happy to provide a one-on-one demo as well if you want to dig deeper into this new exciting technology. One of the first questions we have, and Ayman, you briefly touched on this, is around privacy. How can companies share specific information and ensure that the data is secure on the Specright network?
That's a very interesting question. I usually talk to my girls about the social media and what you're allowed to share and not to share. We follow similar trends. If you ever use Instagram and you're able to share your posts with specific people, only specific people are shared with, or being able to comment, it's similar in the Specright platform. You can share specification details with specific people or not, specific partners or not, and that's all configurable by your rules and privacy rules.
That's great, Ayman. And I think that's a big benefit because security is paramount, but also the speed of information sharing is also paramount. So being able to configure and set that up really easily, I think is going to be a game changer for companies across the board. Another question we had come in, and Dan, I believe you hinted at this, is you talked about the variety of industries. Many industries have supply chains. Dan, what industries are you really seeing leaning in on this when it comes to supply chain?
So I think everybody who's following the blockchain space has seen food traceability. Even as a consumer, we are very aware of recalls around various produce that has happened. And the idea that I'd want to be able to track that down without an excessive amount of lost product, so that if you can track something back to a particular manufacturing batch because specifications were out of alignment or a particular run, those are all things from a supply chain that are really important. The other area we see a lot, Eamon and I presented to the Blockchain and Transportation Alliance about a month ago. There is definitely a lot of focus, and that whole consortium is focused on how to track things to allow goods and services to move more quickly and allow people to verify the point of origin. We've all seen the implications of false products or things that are arriving from countries of origin that may not be as focused on health and safety as some of the destination companies like here in North America. Those are all things that are really driving confidence in the supply chain that are percolating down to the consumers. And the consumers want to know that it's not just a sticker on the product that says this product is environmentally sustainable, ethically sourced, those kind of things. They want to know there's some real data behind it. So blockchain is really starting to become driven by the consumer, not just by corporations.
That's great, Dan. Extremely interesting points all around. And I know there's similar applications for life sciences and pharmaceuticals, and with the same aspects of traceability and visibility. So we're excited to see how customers start to apply this. That's a great segue to one of the next questions we got. Someone said, "This is awesome. How do we get started?" Can you talk a little bit about how companies can get up and running and start to take advantage of the Specright network?
So definitely we have the information as well on the Specright site, specright.com/blockchain. But if you're on the Specright platform, we easily enable you on our beta program. And we start with you with digitizing your specs first, as we said. And then the next step is to start actually linking those specs together. And then once you put the full operation on it, then we actually can start sharing and using the Specright platform as well as the Specright network as a way of sharing and publishing your specs. But definitely check out the specright.com/blockchain, and we'll definitely be able to roll you into our beta program.
Awesome, that's great. Another question that came in that, Dan, I'd love for you to answer is, do you think the coronavirus or COVID-19 is going to accelerate the adoption of digital applications like this? Dan, would love your thoughts around that. I know, for example, many analysts are saying that e-commerce adoption has been driven through the roof, and we've probably experienced 5 years of gains this year. Do you see a similar spike with maybe interest in blockchain or applicability, especially as we adapt to a virtual and digital world?
Definitely, and I love your 5 years in the last year or the last 5 months. It is really telling, because we see a lot of companies who would have taken a project that they might have allowed to span several years to become e-commerce based. The challenge is all these companies come e-commerce based and they're looking for increasing trust in their products. They don't have a great way of doing that. It becomes a very manual process and becomes very labor intensive. And so we're seeing that the underlying technical components of blockchain are allowing companies to make that happen without the additional effort and human follow-up and audits that previously were required with standard invoicing and tracking. And that's one of the big things in the Specright environment. When you start looking at a BOM or a bill of materials, understanding that final product, you don't really understand the pieces that feed into it. And that transparency that you're hoping to get might be based on information that might be years old because the company just doesn't keep track of those minor changes in specifications. But in my house, my family has peanut allergies in a couple of my kids. So knowing where a particular flour came from to make a muffin might seem like irrelevant information, but if it comes from the same plant that processes a lot of peanuts and somebody changes the flour content, that's like life or death for my family. And so it's very hard for me to kind of track that information. But what if I could click on that muffin that I was buying at the store and get a web printout that I knew was accurate on where that product was coming from? They say the muffin is peanut safe, but is it really coming from factories that provide the supplied ingredients that are also peanut safe or peanut free? Those are the kind of things that I think are happening more quickly now because of that transparency. And in environmental movements, we're seeing the same kind of focus on the reality across the entire components in the supply chain. Where do I buy my clothing from? Was it ethically sourced? Are all things that come up. I maybe stop there. I could go on for hours. This is such a important topic, and I do see it changing quite quickly.
That's a great point, Dan. And you mentioned product recalls, and this still surprises me to this day. More than half of product recalls are simply due to mislabeling. And the idea that we can start to use blockchain to prevent these kind of issues from happening in the first place because we have more visibility into changes. I mean, you spoke about it, right? It can literally mean the difference between life or death for someone. And that's an amazing outcome that I think technology can continue to help with. One of the other questions that came up is typically in some of these companies, there's a division between the business operators and IT. I definitely saw this during my consulting career. It says the operators, as an operator, I love this, but how do I sell this to my CIO or CTO? I know we were named a Gartner Cool Vendor this year, and Specright helps fill a critical role in digital roadmap. What would you say to the CTO or CIO who's maybe a little bit hesitant about adopting Specright Network or specification management?
Well, first of all, it's most CTOs and CIOs that are afraid of revolutionizing their operational model, right? The IT operational model. It's more about the evolution than the revolution of it, right? Start first by looking at your supplier. Do you have the information that you need or not? If you don't, it's as simple as start easy, solve the first problem, first level of supplier depth. Map your files, map your measure first how you're communicating with your supplier, right? Start by looking at, do you have your specs or suppliers have it? Put them in one place, and start by adopting a system like Specright or other platforms in the same area where you can actually start really have a direct view, one centralized view of every information. And then the next step is start joining the network itself and start communicating with the rest. Ask your first level of suppliers to be on the network as well, and that will just start the chain of all communication across your whole supply chain network.
Awesome. Well, Dan and Ayman, thank you both for sharing your time and your knowledge. This is a very fascinating subject, and we're really excited about Specright Network. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.